What up, everybody? It's your boy, Prez, here with the 10th episode of this cycle's Draft Strickland. We're a day off from the Women's College Championship, a day past a Knicks Cavs barn burner with the playoffs looming. Today is perhaps the most important game in Draft Strickland for the year, which is not a Knicks game. It's the Dallas game. They play. Who do they play? They play. I want to say Miami. They play Miami, and this game has significant impact on whether or not the Knicks will have a first-round pick of their own, because the Dallas pick that we own this year is top 10 protected. So if you see me in these DC streets celebrating, if you see footage circulating on the internet, it means our Dallas Mavericks have come through for your boy by getting a victory over the shitty, overrated, fraudulent Miami Heat. And then it means we'll probably get a very nice player at 11 if we don't trade out. So to help me talk about who we might get this year, I have a returning guest, Mr. Washington State himself, Bryce Hendricks. If you haven't listened to last year's episode with Bryce, I'm not going to say go listen to it, because who is a lunatic enough to go listen to last year's draft podcast? But you should know that it was early in the cycle, and we talked about Washington State prospects, of which last year's class had many. And Bryce unleashed some takes at the time that may have been considered a little toasty, but were proven to be very valid across the next year. You know, we talked about how Paolo showcased his passing in high school, something that didn't really pop until towards the end of his Duke season. And now we see that, you know, every day with the Magic. We talked about Tari Eason, who became my favorite prospect. Some may say, I'm not going to say who, but some may say he's the best player on the Houston Rockets right now, which is probably more a statement about the Rockets than it is about Tari Eason. So anyway, my point is, this man dropped some gems on the draft community. If you don't follow him, at Bryce Hendrick, that's HENDRICK 14. You should follow him. He writes about draft stuff. He writes about the Washington State. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, Washington State Cougs.
Yeah. He has stuff on Patreon. He co-hosts draft podcast called Upside Swings, which is dope if you haven't checked it out. He's a fellow real hooper connoisseur. Bryce, how are you doing today?
I'm great. That was a hell of an intro, man. That warms my heart. No, but you know, last year's draft was very fun for me as a PNW guy, and not only because it was 3 PNW prospects, but
for people not in the know, PNW, Pacific Northwest.
Yes, Pacific Northwest. Excuse me. It was 3 guys. I didn't have to lie through my teeth about any of them. There was no guy who I'm like, I know this guy is trash, but he's from up here, so I gotta tell people he's great. No, it was like 3 guys I was really high on. And yeah, I think we recorded that fairly early in the cycle. I think before Tari and Marjon were really considered like definite first round picks, and then they ended up going 17 and 21. And, you know, I think both of them had pretty solid rookie years for what you'd expect. It's hard to take anything away from the Houston Rockets this year. They've just been a disaster. But Coop agrees with me that Tari's their best player, and Marjon's been fine in limited minutes. So, you know, I'll take what I can get there. But yeah, I'm excited to be back. This is awesome.
Marjon, you know, on any other team, he'd be getting like probably real minutes, but it's the Bucks and they're arguably the best team. So minutes are tough to come by. But, you know, when they've had injuries, especially to Middleton earlier in the year, he stepped up enough that like Knicks fans would constantly tweet me and be like, can we like, and Knicks fans love Obi Toppin. So like, understand this. Like Knicks fans would be like, if we're not going to play Obi, can we just trade him for Marjon? And I'm like, I wouldn't be mad at that, but I don't think the Bucks are going to do that because they like Marjon actually. So even though he doesn't play that much, you know, he's somebody who could help them right now and in the future. So it was a great pick by the Bucks, like you said, solid rookie year. He's shooting that thing well, which me and Bryce told you he was gonna do. So nailed it. But yeah, this year, not who are there Pacific Northwest guys in the first round like projected or not really?
Not really. Definitely not high school guys. I think the closest you'll get is Muhammad Gay, who played at WSU. He's not from here, but just has a tie here, obviously playing in Pullman. But even he's probably more like, like 30 to 45 than first round. This was a fairly weak Pacific Northwest class, and next year's is potentially weak too. I really like Jalen Stewart better than him. There's not really like a standout guy. But then after that, it gets interesting again with guys like Zoom Jalo and some other guys coming up.
So they're resetting their clock, and they'll be back. They'll be back in no time.
There's always cycles up here. We don't have the consistent every year talent like LA, but every 2-3 years we're producing guys who are good enough to be the number one pick. So I'll take it.
There you go. All right. Speaking of number one picks, something me and my last podcast, Chris Parsiainen of listeners will know him from Knicks Film School. We talked about it, and I decided I just want to do this every pod because it was really fun when we did it. That is just comparing some of the guys, the top 5 guys, the top 5 picks last year. So Paolo Banchero on the Magic, Chet, who hasn't played obviously on the Thunder, Jabari. I've done this the whole cycle. I keep wanting to call him Jabari Parker, and I don't know why.
Well, I can think of one reason why, but
yo, I love Jabari as a prospect, man. I don't know what the fuck happened to that dude. But yeah, Jabari, and then Keegan on the Kings, our Kings, my second favorite team this year, and Jaden Ivey on the Pistons, who Knicks fans thought they had a real chance of acquiring on draft day. There was a lot of smoke. They probably almost certainly made a legitimate offer, and Detroit ended up being cool on it, which is fine. I like him on Detroit, and I like where the Knicks are at. So whatever. But those guys are all having pretty much, even Jabari, who he's in the worst possible situation and he got off to the worst possible start. He's been putting it together a little bit, which is a very relative statement. They've begun using him at the 5 a little bit and just generally messing around. They've been playing him with other good defenders, which is a shocking idea that it took them 60 games to figure out. Playing him with Tari and Kenyon Jr., which has been the best of their bad lineups, unsurprisingly. And so I would say they're all doing all right. Or in the case of Paolo, more than all right. He already has answered my biggest question for Paolo coming in was, how long would it take him to be like, oh, I'm gigantic and I can just run into people and draw fouls? Because he's so talented and gifted that he can get to guard moves and guard shots whenever he wants, mid ranges and stuff like that, finesse shots. And I didn't really have questions about his shooting or his passing. I kind of bought that stuff, but the foul stuff, I was like, man, he was at Duke. He should have been drawing 10 free throws a game out this motherfucker, but he didn't. And then I don't know what clicked for him or with the Magic or with Coach Jacques Vaughn or whatever, but he pretty much from day one was just among the league leaders in drawing free throws. And when an already great prospect answers your number one question that quickly, that's probably a great sign for their career. So what I wanted to ask you to start off was what were you watching for Paolo coming into the year?
Definitely that. I wanted to see how he was used positionally, and I thought the Magic were a fascinating place to see that, with their other talent. And he's kind of he hasn't really played much at the 5, which I still think there's some upside there for him to to be a 5 in some lineups, but he's played some at like the 3. I think like I'm just, that team is really fun. They're going to be fun to watch going forward. I do really wonder what they put around him. Like what they're really looking to attack in this year's draft and moving forward. But he really has answered everything, and his rookie season, and I don't mean this as like a shot at Cade, right? Cade has dealt with injuries and stuff, but his rookie season is looking a lot more like what I expected Cade Cunningham's rookie season to look like, where it's just like, is he necessarily contributing to a ton of winning? Not really, but it's so obvious like how good he can be just because guys this big don't dribble like him, don't make passing reads like this, don't hit shots that he does. Like, it's just a special skill set. And, I had him number 1 on my board. I actually had him in the same tier as Chet in 2022. I had both those guys 1 and 2
same.
In the same tier. And I still stand by that. We haven't seen Chet play, obviously, but it's definitely like Paolo is the much higher offensive ceiling guy of those two. And it's absurdly easy to buy that going forward. Like, if anything, like, it's almost, there's a chance I was too low because I had him, in my below generational tier, and obviously generational is a subjective term that probably gets thrown around too much. I should probably change the name, but like, that's like, I think of that as like, the guys you're really comfortable betting on being the best player on the championship team for a long time. Could Paolo get to that level? I think it's possible at this point.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I really like the way you phrased that. On my unnecessarily complex big board that has lots of colors and columns and things, I have kind of like what you alluded to. Like, I have in order to help compare prospects between years, I have descriptions of who I've included in a tier in previous years, just so that if you're looking at my board, you can see like, oh, like Wemby's in this tier. That's the tier that like Luka and Zion and Anthony Davis were in. And then I had the tier below generational. I just titled the projected instant franchise player tier, which I had Cade in that. I had LaMelo in that. I had Markelle Fultz in that. I had Chet in that. And then the tier below that is possible franchise player, probably really great. And I had Paolo there. And I like him answering that first question about the physicality and the free throws. Like, he's clearly above that. He's obvious. He's just like a very, very obvious instant franchise player, instant mismatch problem for like 20 years, whatever, with the possibility to be even better than that. Like, I thought his defense was like fine on the Magic, which is great. Like, as far as a starting point for a rookie kid, like, even like when the Magic always, first of all, like, I probably have a skewed sample because the Magic, for some reason, for 2 years, have just given the Knicks fucking fits. But like watching him match up with, Julius and stuff like that, he's like, he hangs in there at the point of attack. And I'm like, okay, that's pretty good, because most teenagers would just like get thrown into the front row by Julius Randle. Of course, he's still working on like all the other defense stuff, like most rookies, right? Like the off-ball stuff. But he's probably a little ahead of where I expected on that end, which is, a testament to what the Magic got going on. So he's, I'm with you, man. He's been a beast this year, and kind of along those lines. So like, what I wanted to ask you as a follow-up was, where do you have those first 5? If you had to, well, let me take a step back. My brain is going ahead of what I'm speaking right now. Do you have a solid top 10 for this year right now?
Solid, I would say no, because I kind of just like rank guys as I go. Yeah. What I will say is I've so far scouted in depth 23 guys. Okay. I have all of them completely locked in to where they're at. And for the most part, it's been the top guys, right? You tend to start with the top. And everyone we've talked about on upside swings, I have completely locked in. And that does have like, so my lottery tier, right? That's my tier 4, covers the rest of my lottery, has up to 12 guys. So like I have up to my number 12 guy there. And then I have up to 15 kind of in that mid first. And there's definitely going to be some guys that sprinkle in, right? Like We're talking about like Jalen Hood-Schifino and Kobe
Right.
Buffkin soon, and like, but I don't think there's anyone left on the board that I haven't watched that I'm confident saying is going to jump into that top 10.
Okay. Yeah, that's totally fair. So as far as guys you've looked at, in no particular order, like the consensus top-ish guys seem to be obviously Wemby and Scoot, and then you have some mix. Again, no particular order. Cam Whitmore, the wing from Villanova, Amen and Asar Thompson, the wings from OTE, Brandon Miller, the whatever position you want to call him from Alabama, and Jarvis Walker, the power forward / wrecking ball person, human being from Houston. And then after that, it seems to vary a little bit, but like for those guys, how would you think, for the ones you've looked at of that group, how do you think those guys stack up to like Keegan and Ivy and Paolo and Chet and Jabari?
So I would probably have Paolo and Chet 2 and 3 in this class, and that'll seem crazy to some. But I find myself a little lower on Scoot than some. He's still great. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I'm not trying to take anything away from him. Still a wonderful, wonderful prospect, but just like slightly lower. I don't love the handle. Like I think that's kind of my biggest issue, is that he sometimes struggles to dribble in tight spaces. So like I have some worries there about like overall half court upside. And then especially, he's just 6'1" or whatever.
It's hard when you're short.
Yeah. Like he's got long arms, so he can play bigger. Like he's probably physical and big enough to play the 2 if he had to, but like it's just at a certain point. I mean, Paolo was a 6'10" advantage creator, and Chet is one of the most technically sound rim protectors of all time. Like no one was as good as him at just like all the little things of playing in drop coverage and defense. Plus, given the fact that he was also a good offensive big as well. So like
those, so it's more about those guys than
like
Scoot, really. Yeah.
Yes, those guys I just think we're almost under. Like last year's class got talked about as bad in a lot of ways, and there was definitely some weaknesses there, but I think a lot of that was more centered around Jabari being considered number 1 by so many for so much of the year than it actually was Chet and Paolo, because I think Chet and Paolo are wonderful, wonderful prospects who I think both will be, if obviously we're worried now with Chet's injury stuff, but I think that's mostly fluky. If both can stay healthy, I think they're both like perennial all-star, going to make some all-NBA teams, are the types of guys I think can like swing championships for the right teams. Those guys I will always bet on. So comfortably, I had those 2 ahead. But then, other than that, like, and I don't want to say I'm like, like famous for it or whatever, but like my board does tend to differ sometimes, right? Like, Keegan Murray.
That's why I asked you.
Yeah. Keegan Murray I had like in my mid-first. So like I would have, and that was maybe a little too low, but like I would have him below guys in this year's draft like Taylor Hendricks and probably right next to like Jet Howard and Leonard Miller. Like those are kind of who I would have Keegan's contemporaries as. I prefer guys like Dariq Whitehead, Cam Whitmore, Anthony Black, Bryce Sensabaugh, Kassan Wallace. Those guys I all prefer comfortably to someone like a Keegan Murray. But I would have Ivy in that tier with that last group of guys I just mentioned. And he would probably be at the top fit, like right now at the top of my lottery tier. So my top tier is, just Wemby. Then I have a break of a whole tier where I don't have anyone, and that's where like Chet and Paolo would go.
Sure.
And then in the top 5 area, I had Amen, Scoot, and I also had Adrian Griffin Jr. in that tier in his draft because I was very high on him.
Yeah.
And then in the next tier, I had like Jade and Ivy, and that's also like he'd probably be at the top of it because the top of that tier for 2023 is Kassan Wallace and Bryce Sensabaugh, and I probably prefer Ivy to both those guys.
Okay, yeah, that's I think I'm comfortable saying that like one of the things I like for getting returning guests on is just like on Twitter, you learn what kind of things different people value as prospects, and the ball handling and on ball stuff. It's easy to kind of take that for granted, and I think you don't, which is one reason I always pay attention to how you value dudes. And like, Jabari is a perfect example of that. Like he has lots of skills, but like that's just such a like you just need. It's so hard to get a lot of value on offense without ball handling, and even Keegan, right? Like this guy is a legit nuclear shooter, and he's tall. And in theory, he can attack mismatches. He hasn't really been used that way for the Kings, but like the point is, like, even if you're a nuclear 6'9" shooter like him, there's still a little bit of a ceiling there without doing more on the ball stuff. So as far as taking swings in the draft, you know, a lot of the guys you mentioned this year, right? Kassan Wallace, who's the point guard of Kentucky, my son Bryce Sensabaugh, who's the shooting guard. Oh my God, why am I blanking?
Ohio State.
Cool. On Ohio State, Jesus fucking Christ! It's probably because they suck so much that I've like blacked them out of my memory.
This was such a weird. I think Chris Holtman's a good coach, but it was such a weird year for the Buckeyes, man. Like they just like everything that could have gone wrong went wrong, and it all just fell apart.
I got a buddy who I hoop with, who's an Ohio State alum, and anytime I talk to him about Bryce, I would like start the conversation really excitedly, and he would just be real sad because he'd be like, yeah, our coach just doesn't know what he's doing. He takes Bryce out because defense, but everybody sucks at defense, and it's like, why are you taking your best player out? Like, he was just so sad, and then Bryce obviously is leaving, so he knew that shooting star has come and gone. Now they got to see whoever's, you know, coming in next year for their recruiting class. So yeah, it was definitely a bit weird for Bryce. As far as the top of that group that you mentioned, I think I'm actually pretty close to where you are, because I'm now like forward looking higher on Paolo because he answered the biggest question I had with a resounding yes. I would definitely put him either. I'm probably a little higher on Scoot than you, but like he's definitely there in the tier below Wemby, like Paolo and Chet for sure. And I'm, some would say, unreasonably high on Cam Whitmore, so he'd probably be there too. And then I have the twins, Amen and Asar, right there with Scoot and Whitmore. But if I had to like micro parse, I would probably put them like a hair below Scoot and Whitmore just because you got to shoot. It's rough. Like I was thinking about the twins and I was like, okay, what ball handling tallish dudes in the NBA can't really shoot threes? And there's some of them who succeed, right? Like DeJounte Murray is a pretty good player and he doesn't really shoot threes, but even he's like a ridiculously good mid-range shooter, right? Or like Josh Giddey, but he's like a generational passer and also great in the mid-range as well, like with his ridiculous floater. So
and is never ever crossing the ball over. All left hand, all right hand dribbles, never crossing over.
He'll just do like 10 in and out dribbles that don't really go anywhere, and then still just be like, oh yeah, I'm 6'9". Here's a floater.
No, I'm like, yeah, like just because like you didn't stop me, like it, you know, I'll just take this right at the rim. It doesn't matter. He is the most bagless future superstar of all time, but I love it.
It's absolutely true. Like his crossovers are just his handles are just so uninspiring, uncool. I'm not even in, I don't know what part of Australia he's from, but I bet you in his hometown of Australia, nobody's like, oh, here's my Josh Giddey impersonation on the pickup courts or whatever. Unless they just are like, oh, you stand in the corner, I'll stand at half court, but on the other side of the court, and I'll just throw a 40-foot pass to you. Like that would be your pickup basketball Josh Giddey impersonation.
Yeah, it's not like dudes up here trying to beat Jamal Crawford. So
exactly, it's a different skill set. I'll leave it at that. All right, cool. Well, we talked about the twins a little bit, and one guy I wanted to ask you about is Jarace Walker, just because I think a lot of people online are very high on him, but he, you know, not the most inspiring ball handler and still kind of working out how to best leverage his gifts and figure out what to fix in the next level on offense. I actually think he'll be able to shoot fine on like catch and shoot and even on some mid-range shots and from free throws. my concerns are more just dribble related stuff. But he's a ridiculous defender, so he's definitely one of those does a lot of little things guys. But he's nowhere near as big as someone like Chet, so that kind of just puts a little bit of a, I don't want to say a damper, but like you don't have to be a 7-footer to be, all NBA defense. There's plenty of amazing defenders who are Jarris's height or smaller. But just have you had a chance to like dig into him? Where are you at on him?
Yeah, we just recently kind of did our big discussion on him, and I think he's just way less athletic than I wished he was. I agree with you 100%. I think he can shoot. Not like he's not great. Like I don't think it's like he's gonna ever be like a huge worry, but like I think he can like pick and pop a little bit. He's a really good mid-range scorer. He loves that little like left to right tween and then just pull up on that. Like he creates zero separation off the dribble ever, but it's like, oh, I'll just shoot this over you because I'm 6'8", whatever. I just think he's just kind of really slow all over the place. He's it reminds me a little bit of like this is a weird comparison, but it reminds me a little bit of Robert Woodard, where it's like, oh, this guy's
deep cut.
This guy's interesting, but like everything he does is just like a little too slow. I think like he never gets by anyone. His self-generated rim touches this year or paint touches like against like solid comp, because obviously there's some really crappy AAC teams that he did that against, but like whenever he was playing against good teams, like he just didn't get to the rim against even like kind of competent defenders. Defensively, like I think he gets talked about as like this uber versatile guy, and I just don't see it. I think he's just like an undersized drop 5 because he's constantly getting cooked on the perimeter. I mean, Taylor Hendricks, who is not a good ball handler or driver particularly, dusted him like 4 times.
He was frying him.
Yeah, like and like it's just like again, I like Taylor Hendricks a lot, but not for that. Not because I think he's ever gonna like dribble and get downhill. Like Walker's just really slow. He just could not stay in front of him. He can't like switch out onto guards. He's not blowing by guys. He's kind of slow in transition. So I'm just kind of like, well, what does he do? Because he gets talked about as this guy who's like, a 6'8" super strong advantage creator, and that's just not who he is. I think that's just like a complete misinterpretation of what he does. What he can do is really pass. So I think what you're trying to figure out is how can you leverage that at a high level. I've started to think about, I think he could be, I think of him more as a 5. I think that's his best role going forward, even though he's only 6'8", because I think he's too slow to be a 4. And I don't think the shooting is quite good enough that you're like getting something out of him as a 4. Versus as a 5, he's an above average shooter at the 5. And I think he can really pass out of the short roll. I think he's a very, very good post passer, though his post ups suck because he's also really bad at using his strength. He never gets anywhere. He plays
like, why are you 240 pounds and jacked, bro?
Yeah, like
for what?
To look good in IG pics, I guess. I don't know, but like he's like never pushing anyone back. Like he has good touch. Like he can just get to like a little right hook and it's fine. But I really do worry about like how that's going to look if he is, trying to post up NBA players like instead of AAC centers who with 6'10" wingspans. Like it's a whole different world. I just think. I think he's like a solid fine prospect. I have him like in my late first. I don't see like advantage creator. I don't see elite defender. I think he could be a good drop big, but he's never going to be like a high level rim protector. And I think his help instincts are good, not great. So you're just kind of asking like, what value can I get off having a plus size passer who isn't a ball handler? There's some good stuff there. You absolutely can. It's kind of like what Xavier Tillman was like coming out of Michigan State, where it's like, well, you can't really dribble. Xavier Tillman could dribble more than Walker, but they're not like great ball handlers at the NBA level.
Right.
How do you leverage their passing? And there's ways to do it, but I think a lot has to click for him to be a really above average NBA player, and I think you're taking a lot of bets if you're really hoping he sticks.
One of the things I'm most interested in with him is like usually when we talk about guys who have physical and athletic gains, that are low hanging fruit available to them coming into the league. It's not guys who look like him, right? It's 18-year-olds who are skinny, or Jordan Hawkins who's 20 but still looks like he's 13 years old, or whatever. It's guys. It's AJ Griffin coming back from injury and just getting some of that stability back. And particularly for AJ, we saw as a rookie that just getting back into great shape, it really manifested more on defense for him than on offense. He randomly became like a huge steals guy in the NBA. And I know, the Hawks are probably not the most technically sound conservative defense there is. Trey, him, and Murray all gamble quite a lot, but that was surprising and a good sign. And I think Jarace, the athleticism concerns, that's definitely my biggest question for him as well. I'm probably a little higher on his defense, but like big picture, I just think he's not the functional athlete that would be so cool given all the other stuff he's good at. And you see it on his drives. Like, I'm happy you pointed that out. I did a super fucking nerdy video about I don't know what the hell to call it, so I just call it Gallup dribble drives. It's like this, instead of driving just with like predictable dribble step, it's when guys kind of do a quick 1-2 step or a hop, and it lets them slow down or speed up or change directions. And Zion's like the best at it. But a lot of NBA players do it. And Chris Murray in this year's class is really, really good at it. And I was looking at different players, like power players, because it's usually a tool of power players in the NBA. So I'm like, oh, Jarace, he's 245 pounds. Like, does he do this? And my guess was, no, he doesn't, because in the few games I had watched before that, he kind of stunk at driving. And then sure enough, looking at it, it's like every drive was super predictable and the same kind of cadence. And he just makes himself small and doesn't get off the ground much. So I just wonder if between, maybe even losing some weight or getting he might got some Patrick Williams, your legs are too tree trunky situation going on, and then just pro footwork and stuff like that. I would hope he would learn to leverage his size more, because even if he's never going to be some ball handling dude, but like, you're 240 pounds, you should be able to bully a stray 2 or 3 here and there, even in the NBA. Like right now, like if you fast forwarded into the future, I'm like, yeah, put Quentin Grimes on him. I don't care. Like whatever. They wouldn't do that because he's not a threat, and they put Quentin Grimes on threats. But like, put RJ Barrett on him, whatever. And he probably should be able to push RJ, but he absolutely would not in his current state. So there's a lot more risk there than people are saying, which is why I wanted to talk about it. And then conversely, I want to move on to another guy you mentioned, who is probably, if you had to just poll Knicks Twitter on who they were most thirsty for if they kept the 11th pick, it's Taylor Hendricks, the 6'9", give or take, power forward, wing shooter person out of UCF. And Knicks fans are super interested in this young gentleman because presumably Obi Toppin is just on his way out. That divorce is probably going to happen sooner rather than later, just because with Randall playing how he is, there's just not much. Even if you want to, there's just not much you can do in terms of your Obi Toppin usage. And they need shooting. So Obi being a decent shooter, they're like, yo, just take 12 threes per 100, which is really not how you want to use Obi Toppin. He gets like no roll reps. And then, Obi's already better on defense than he was in college, but that's not really saying much. The bar is super low. And Tay Hendricks, on the other hand, is like a 19-year-old fucking rim protecting help side rim protector monster, at least at the college level. And that's that archetype, like somebody who can come in from the weak side and block shots. Like RJ doesn't do that. Julius doesn't do that. Obi doesn't do that. Who's a little switchy, but still big. We don't really have anybody like that on the Knicks. So he's just an idea that a lot of Knicks fans can get behind. And he seems to be in these mock drafts around like anywhere from 9, 10, 11, 12. Some people have him higher. Some people have him lower. So where are you at on him in terms of like what you like or what you think he'll have to struggle with or work on as a young NBA player? Because he could be in the Garden, probably stapled to the bench, but still in the Garden.
I like Taylor Hendricks a lot. I'll admit, like 100%, and all the Knicks fans should expect this. I don't think there is really much offensive upside at all. Like he's a really poor passer. Everyone on that UCF team was a poor passer, which really hurt him because I think there is like upside for him to be used as a roll man. He's a very good 2-foot leaper, but no one
He
can
got
throw
long
passes.
arms too. I don't know what his wingspan is, but
they seem gigantic, right? Like it wouldn't surprise me to get like some Bruno Caboclo measurements out here. But like he's got long arms, good leaper. I think he can like really shoot. He's 6'9", and the form is so funky. I posted a video on Twitter the other day where it's just like you would never teach someone this form, right? But like because he's always like planting with a different foot, and it's like with zero consistency about where the ball is coming from in that way. Like he's just like, oh, I accidentally caught it with my right foot on the ground. Well, I guess I'll just cheat set with my left foot then and shoot it that way instead of like, there's not really any shot prep, but it doesn't matter because the touch is insane. And he is hitting like some very tough shots at times. Not a ton off the dribble, though occasionally more than you'd kind of expect probably, but I think he can really shoot out the catch. Like I would say elite for a 6'9" guy type shooter.
Oh, yeah.
I can really see that. I can even see a world where he's hitting some like off some light movement, like running DHOs where the read is just for him to get the shot or whatever, stuff like that. Like
how Keegan's doing it in the Kings.
Basically, yeah. Like he doesn't have the same like feel for spacing that Keegan does, but he's also like 4 years younger than Keegan, 5 years younger than Keegan, whatever. So I think he can absolutely do that. If that's all you're asking for him, that's great. But as soon as you're trying to if you're trying to project him out to be a offensive quote unquote lottery pick, it's just not going to work out because I think there's very little shot creation equity there. He's just like even like I'm sure someone real dumb is going to compare him to like Jaren Jackson, right? Like Jaren Jackson was a better ball handler and passer at Michigan State his freshman year.
He was a great ball handler on the low.
Yeah, and he could post up a little bit. Like Taylor Hendricks can't really post up. If Taylor Hendricks posts up, it's like he's going to take a turnaround midi, which is fine. Like that's not even a bad shot for him necessarily, but it's not something you're drawing a play to.
Right. It's probably a bad shot for your NBA team.
Yes. Yes. It works for him, but that's like a flaming bag shot, which is fine. But, it's nice that he has that, but it's not something you're ever going to want to go to. Where the real intrigue is with his defense. And this is again where I think it's just all instincts. And his ability to high point the ball or like the amount he's blocked more dunks than anyone I've scouted, I think, and they're all like perfectly timed. I watched the replays. I'm like, that's a foul 99% of the time, but he is the one guy who gets his hand on the ball and touches nothing else. Like he has like 4 blocks this year that were like the college equivalent of that Bam Adebayo dunk on Jason Tatum in the bubble.
Oh yeah, where his hand was like,
or literally like broke his wrist, like he did, like he had. I was watching the NIT game against Florida, and he had like this chase down block where, Miriam Jones like cocked it all the way back, and somehow it was incredible. He got nothing but the ball like right at the rim. It was crazy. Like he just has an insane ability to high point these shots, to get nothing but ball without fouling. It's like one of one. It's the type of thing you rarely see.
I was gonna say, like, what? Like, I know there's some centers I can think of who have that gift of like being so coordinated that they can be moving backwards and get all ball and no forearm or something. Chet is the one guy who's like a power forward who can do that stuff. But like, I'm trying to think of other NBA power forwards who are just have that specific skill, and I don't know. None come to mind. I'm sure they're there, and I'm forgetting, but there's definitely not many of them.
Well, I'll argue Pacific Northwest King Jaden McDaniels is the closest.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's like the closest. And like I'm not one for like comps, but defensively it's so easy to see Jaden McDaniels when you're watching Taylor Hendricks. Like if Jaden McDaniels didn't decide to go to fucking UW and play in his zone, like this is what Jaden McDaniels would have looked like defensively as a freshman. And just like Taylor Hendricks, he would have been a top 15 pick or whatever.
That zone ruined my Jaden McDaniels ranking, and that's my story, and I'm sticking with it.
Yeah, I still had him. I think I had him like 5 in that year's draft. So take that for what you will.
I didn't have a podcast back then. That was the problem.
Yeah,
I couldn't get that PNW insider info.
Yeah, see, and I don't even think I was on Twitter yet at that point. So, anyways, but yeah, with Hendricks, like he also combines that with just like a really insane innate feel for like where the ball is and how to cover the rim. He also has like insanely quick hips. His ability to drop step, like there was this one play where someone like drove middle at him. He was kind of stunting and help, and he came all the way over, and then the driver dumped it off to a cutter, and he like absurdly quickly dropped that right foot and just blocked that shot like hard off the backboard. It was crazy, and the timing was insane. It was just like I think he can be a potentially game-breaking help side rim protector. There are some issues with his defense. I don't think he's not like his awareness isn't great. The instincts are good, but the awareness isn't always great. And there are times he just gets like randomly back cut, or he loves to overhelp, right? Like there are times he's definitely hunting blocks, and then he leaves a corner shooter wide open, and that's just stuff you can't get away with in the NBA. He's also like his footwork is really bad on the perimeter, and that leaves him exposed a lot. But I think he can learn that. Like the hips are quick, and the foot speed is good. It's just the footwork itself is bad. So you get him with an NBA coach who can kind of fix some of that, and I think there's maybe something there.
That's just think something like, I really dream about, because two of the Knicks' best defenders are Quentin Grimes and Deuce McBride, and they were both very fucking good defenders in college. But it was kind of like Tay, like they were just physically advanced and had amazing instincts and just quick hands and agility. But then you watch their footwork like as rookies, and I'm like, oh, they don't really know how to like do stuff, but they're so fast and agile that they'll just make up for it by getting back into play or pushing someone out the way or whatever. So, and they've cleaned that up in the time since, being in the NBA. So that would be, I'm sure Johnny Bryan and Tibbs would be all over that.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I just like, I think there was a world where he is I would say I'm confident saying he is at the very least going to be like a starting level, quote unquote, 3-and-D forward, right? I think there is a world where he is like an all defense caliber defender who's also like a 40% high volume shooter. And we talked about how much we value, ball handling stuff, and that combination is enough for me to make it to where I don't like. I'm only going to knock him so much for not being able to handle the ball. He's honestly, in my opinion, like a very similar prospect, like role projection wise, to what Jabari Smith was last year. And for what that's worth, I have them in the same tier. I had Jabari Smith last year. I had him at 8 on my board, and right about the same range in the exact same tiers where I have Taylor Hendricks, because I actually think that's a sound role for both of them, where it's like a legit shooter who is going to bend defenses with their gravity as a shooter. Can't really dribble, don't make good reads as passers, but that's fine because the defense is potentially good enough that it makes that person still super valuable. It reminds me of like, I was very high on like a Kessler Edwards back in the day. That was someone who I thought could fill that role as well. So I do have still a soft spot for those 3-and-D forwards if I think that the defense is potentially elite enough. And I think Hendricks is right about at that range.
That's going to be music to our listeners' ears. Hopefully he can last, because, for most prospects, you want them to be able to kind of explore and make mistakes and stuff like that. But there's something because the Knicks do the opposite with their prospects. They restrain them, and they're like, here's your fucking role, master that shit. And then they keep you in that role probably long enough to annoy fans who are like, actually, they could help us if they did more. Why don't you let Quentin Grimes attack from not the corner for once? Or why don't you let IQ, run the point guard instead of fucking Alec Burks, Alfred Payton, and this other fucking carousel of awful ball handling guards. Actually, I shouldn't say awful. Shout out Alec Burks. I don't want to ever slander Alec Burks on this podcast. We love Alec Burks here.
Utah Jazz legend Alec Burks.
Exactly. Fascinating career arc that I'd be happy to nerd out about on a different occasion. Maybe I'll save that one for the off season. But like the role that you want him in is Obi's role right now. Is Obi's misassigned role. Obi's in the corner. He's rising up when there's drives to get above the break threes. He's doing some handoffs, occasionally attacking a straight line closeout, but not that often. And he's defending larger players, sometimes threes, sometimes fours. And, he's supposed to help in the paint, but he doesn't do a great job of, similarly to Hendricks, he has poor awareness, but he's a lot older. So it's a lot more damning. You would hope that a player Obi's age is a little bit better in terms of awareness. Like, there's no reason that someone like Obi shouldn't get more blocks, right? Given his height and athleticism on the weak side. Not as a primary defender, because he's still really bad backpedaling, but like you ask Tay Hendricks to do that stuff off the bench, especially, he'll probably be fine. He'll probably kill it in that role. And then you can kind of bring him along. If the ball handling goes from awful to mediocre, that would be amazing. If not, cool. Just deploy him on defense to wreak havoc. So, he's definitely a player, the player I would say a lot of Knicks fans have keyed in on. Another guy Knicks fans have keyed in on, who you mentioned at the top, who I'm actually curious what you think about his on-ball skills, because he hasn't really deployed it that much. But in high school, he would get busy sometimes, is Dariq Whitehead, right? And like Knicks fans are really interested in him, obviously, because he, like AJ Griffin last year, was highly touted coming in, and there's a lot of shit that happened with injuries. And, obviously AJ had a much better season than Dariq did, but Dariq ended at least decently as far as 3-and-D stuff goes. And he's from Jersey, so geographically Knicks fans, they're all about it. He's been in the consciousness of the tri-state area for years at this point. Where are you at on him? Like, because people are all over the place. How worried are you about the injuries? He played a 3-and-D role at Duke. Is that what we should be projecting him as? Like, I don't even care about the loss of I shouldn't care about the loss of hops. I've kind of just accepted that, but there's still a lot of other stuff there, I feel like. So I go back and forth all the time. He moves around on my board more than everyone else. Where are you at on him?
Yeah, so I really like Dariq, and I think that people have really overthought this Duke context. They did the same thing with AJ Griffin last year, who I was
super high on AJ.
I was a very, very big fan of AJ Griffin. Not quite as big a fan of Dariq, but I think there's similar like strengths and weaknesses in their prospect profile, right? Like, and a big one for both of them is that Duke just does not run sets that are conducive for players like this.
Yeah.
Off-ball shooters and straight line drivers who, are at their best, like in a more NBA scheme. Like Duke was running like 90% horns actions and lots of like these shallow cuts and flex actions and stuff that's just like Dariq is just not built for. And that's, obviously it worked fine for Duke this year for whatever that's worth. But I think for Dariq specifically, like get him in an NBA scheme and things are going to really open up. This class is absolutely chock full of like elite shooters. So I almost feel bad saying like, oh, he's one of the best shooters.
Because in another class, he'd be amazing.
Yeah, well, in another class, he'd be the best. And now I would say like Adrian Griffin Jr. is probably a better shooting prospect. Like I was all in on him. But like this year, like Grady Dick, Dariq, we just talked about Taylor Hendricks, Jet, Brandon Miller, plus
Bryce.
Like a ton of other guys. Bryce Sensabaugh, yeah, like not even to like discount guys like Podziemski and
Sure.
Shireman.
Hawkins.
Yep, like Hawkins is a great one. Like, so not to get too lost on a tangent, but like I think Whitehead can really, really shoot, right? And he's a well-built 6'5", 6'6", who can just really stroke that thing. There's some value there.
High release. Knicks
yes,
fans, I know they see that, and they see a little bit of Q Grimes there with that high release.
Yes, that's a very good solid kind of form comparison in some ways. I think like what really stands out to me with Derek is that I think the defense is under talked about coming out of high school. I think he was a borderline elite defensive prospect. Now, obviously, a lot of that was his balance, right? It was that he could act as a second side rim protector. He had good burst to get into passing lanes. All of a sudden, if you're really worried about that bounce never coming back, there's an issue there. But I think it'll be back. I don't know. I trust the NBA staff to get him closer to back. Like, I didn't seem like the injury he had was like catastrophic forever. It's just that he was trying to play through a lot of it, right? Like, he just looked like he was still in pain sometimes. I think he can get back to at least a semblance of what he was in high school. And if that's the case, like you're talking about an elite cutter, you're talking about a guy who can make a ton of plays on the defensive end while also being, strong and sturdy enough to guard 3s and 4s as they're trying to drive by him. He's a little slow laterally, even in high school. Like, he's not going to be an elite switch guy, but in most conventional defenses, like, he's going to be very, very solid, if not great on defense. You mentioned the handle and like, how he used to get busy in high school. I agree with you. The handle's never been good, even in high school. Like, it's just that the release is so high that he could just take like 3-4 one-dribble pull-ups like all the time.
Yeah.
Like, that's if you watch like his high school highlights, like that's everything. Like, everything he was doing is like it's like step back, like the little LeBron step back, like but like he was legitimately great at that. And I think there's still some of that in his game. I think it's a lot more just like I think he can be a nuclear off-ball scorer who can cut, who has just that sense for it. Like, he's been in that role. He was at Montverde when Cade was there. Like, he knows how to score off the ball. He already knows how to do that shit. Like, if he just continues to do that, is a solid defender who can occasionally kind of create his own shot. He's also, I would say, a good passer despite not being able to dribble. I think he makes solid reads. He's just can't really get anywhere, so he can't bend a defense to make passes, but like his connected passing is really good. I think he's great at just like if someone is blitzing him off the line, like he was pretty good at getting out of hard hedges quick with slips or, a corner skip here and there. Like, I don't know. I think there's just something there. I just really, really like Derek, and I think it's important to weight a prospect's whole sample. And I think that's a big issue with a lot of draft people is that they just don't care enough about the high school stuff. That stuff matters. Like, players that did stuff in high school, like it's different from like a Kel'el Ware, obviously, but players who did stuff in high school, especially at really good high schools like Montverde and who played in high-level AAU programs, like, keep that in mind. Like, that's part of a projection. That's part of a sample, especially for guys who got hurt or who weren't playing in great college systems. It matters. And I think Derek is still like a lottery guy based a lot on just how excellent he was in high school.
I think I'm pretty much where you're at. Like, I had him drop pretty low because I'm a coward when it comes to injury things. So I'm like, let the pros figure that out. For purposes of my board, I'm going to drop him. And the other element of it was, I think it was honestly just a little bit of boredom on my part. Like, his archetype is just kind of boring when you compare it to like how he was talked about coming in as some like prototype, which if you watch them, it's like, you're right. Like Montverde, his offense was like, it was as a shooter who happened to be able to dunk. It was like, oh yeah, a high school player coming off screens and then taking step backs, like unheard of, but it wasn't like cross tween, split the double team, or it wasn't like Cade Cunningham, like, super floor general running it wasn't any of that. So what I think is intriguing about it is we're really coming into an age where you can't really cook as just a boring 3-and-D guy. You have to be 3-and-D, but with a little something else. And that doesn't necessarily have to be driving. It could be that connective passing, like you said, or like another thing Derek is really good at is like 1-2 dribble mid-range shots. Like there was a couple of times where they played zone defenses and he could be the zone breaker, right? Like there's times I wish the Knicks had a zone breaker. Like we don't really have anybody who you could just who can just dribble into the middle, into that free throw line area and really who can cook. I mean, now late in the season, they finally figured out that IQ can do that a little bit, but he's kind of short, and Julius can sort of do that, but you rather want him bullying. So we don't really have somebody who can do that. That's another thing I like about Hendricks is he was that guy at UCF, just zone busting. But for Derek, he definitely seems to be that 3-and-D plus, and it sounds like a hater description, but it's really not. And then you're right about the hops. Like I looked at some video and I posted a video of basically him dunking this year, last year, and the year before. And his last year at Montverde, like he had some nice dunks. Nobody would say he was some kind of generationally explosive dunker or anything like that. But the year before that, you would say, yeah, like this guy will get some Slam magazine cover type dunks. But it's okay if he doesn't have that because he got stronger. And as a senior, it's not like he was ground bound. So that was my big worry.
No, definitely not. Like he was still like, even that senior year. Yeah.
He got some posters.
It transitioned to like, I think that's something that, like, I'm sure some people like heard me talk about Derek and Taylor and think like, oh, similar offensive like projection. I think one of the bigger differences is that like Derek has an absurd feel for like running in transition and like getting out in transition and where to fill and where to cut. Like he had some really impressive moments where because his gravity was such it was so high as a shooter, like went like kind of stomp at the 3-point line and then hard cut and catch a lob at the rim. Like he was a really absurd athlete, and his ability to read the floor as an off-ball player and then explode to the rim or hit shots if he was open. Like it was all great stuff, and I think that really projects into the NBA, getting into more NBA schemes as well.
Yeah, agree 100%. And you just hope like the more of that explosiveness he can reclaim to get to like a B- B level, like that's really all he needs, because the shot is just that good. Like if you're an elite shooter and you have that kind of explosiveness, that's like half the battle on offense right there. Like even if you're not blowing by guys, like there were times I would watch Derek and he just couldn't get by like random college bums, and it would make me very sad. But then he would turn around and go like 4 for 4 from 3 every game for like a week, and I'd be like, oh, well, who gives a shit? Like whatever. Like if he could blow by guys and hit the threes and play defense, he'd be like a top 5 pick. We'd be having a different conversation entirely. So he's definitely a guy who I would be cool if the Knicks took. I think some Knicks fans who didn't follow him as closely may have to do some expectation setting, especially because he's just super fucking young, which already probably rules him out from the Knicks. They have yet to take an 18-year-old since RJ Barrett under this new front office. They've yet to take crazy. A 19. They've yet to take a 19. I don't think they've taken everybody. Let me look it up because I'm writing an article on this. I'm pretty sure everyone they've taken, except for Trevor Keels, who doesn't count because he was just like a second round whatever pick, has been, I think, 20 on opening day. Let's see. Obi 22.
Obi was 29.
Obi was 29. Quickly was 21. Grimes was 21. Rokas hasn't come over. He was 20. Deuce was 20. Sims was like 29. There was, and I also for this article looked at people who I'm pretty sure they were trying to trade up for, and the one exception to this rule is Maxey, who we know now that they tried to trade up for. They couldn't get up high enough, so they had to air quotes settle for Emmanuel Quickley, which has worked out for them. But for the most part, that's just not how the Knicks do it. So if they took him, it would be definitely a change in approach. And you could argue it both ways, I feel like, because on the one hand, they still need some bench shooting, like in the short term. But on the other hand, because their rotation is so deep, you could say, yeah, let's take a kid, let him marinate for a little bit and take your time with it. And you don't need to, draft a 22-year-old when you have 8 starter level players or whatever in your rotation. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. We're coming up on the hour mark here. Are there any other guys who just, the Knicks are in a position where they can take a home run swing if they want? They could try to fill that big wing bench role that they don't really have right now. They could approach this in lots of different ways. Does anybody else kind of jump out, just gut reaction as someone, if they pick around 11 or 12, who they should consider, or more than one guy, whatever? Just
well, I mean, I'll say this for everyone, but I guess for the Knicks it makes a ton of sense just because of the Kentucky connection. But like everyone should want to take Cason Wallace. Like once
even
you're
if we
past,
have a bunch of guards,
even if you have a bunch of guards, he can play as a 3. I don't give a shit. Like he's so good. Like to me, he is just like he is one of the players in this class I am the most comfortable betting on to be like a positive contributor to winning basketball for 10 years. Like he can hit shots.
It's a great shooter.
Is an excellent passer, like a truly underrated excellent passer, especially in pick and roll. Like he's not getting all the way to the rim, but like he can just like consistently make advantaged reads in a way that few can. He's one of the best defensive players I've ever seen in my whole life. Like just does everything on that end.
Woo!
Even the screen nav, like that I had some questions about, like I think really improved over the course of the year. The nail defense is insane. Like truly. I mean, it's like Jason Tatum NBA good. But he's obviously smaller. But I still think like the nail defense.
The wingspan basically the same.
yeah. Well, exactly. Like that's what I mean. Like he can play the 3. Like he's big. He's strong. So I'll say that with anyone. Cason Wallace should absolutely be on very high on people's boards. And then this is a Prez bait pick right here, but I'm going to go Bryce Sensabaugh.
Yeah. Now we're talking.
Just getting someone on this team who could just just really get buckets. Like I don't know, I like Quickly is great. I love Quickly. Barrett Randall, whatever.
Give me more.
Just get someone who can consistently just generate good shots. And I think he's even I think he's underrated, but I think even how he's discussed is just sometimes wrong. Like he's a better rim pressure guy than people realize. I think he has a good first step, and no one wants to get in his way because he's not even in shape yet. Yeah, I don't know. I think he's going to be really, really good, and he also has an argument for best shooter in this class. So there's nothing to not like with Sensabaugh. So those are the 2 guys that stand out to me. And then obviously, if guys fall, an Ant Black would be great. Cam Whitmore would be awesome here.
Oh my God,
I love Jesus Cam Whitmore.
Christ. If we got Cam, I think our collective consciousness on the internet would just explode. We just don't get elite athletes who are also young. That's just such a pipe, because what I mentioned before, we just never draft young players. And it's we need a big wing who could shoot and fucking dunk. That'll never happen. We don't get those guys.
Yeah, no, he's he's just he's really good, man. He's another guy who Villanova sucked this year, and it was absolutely not his fault. Everything around him was awful, and he still looked good. He's gonna be really good. He can really. I think he can shoot. I think he can really, cut and finish, and I think he can create for himself sometimes. And in high school, he didn't get to show a ton of Villanova, but in high school, he flashed a lot as a really, really good passer. So it's too bad that he committed to Jay Wright, and then Jay Wright left, and he was kind of left with this walking corpse of a team. But he's still really good, and he's a guy who, if he's at 11, that could really be a steal for the right team. Are the Knicks that right team? I don't know, but I think it would be he's just a wonderful player who a lot of teams should be higher on.
He would probably make Tibbs' head explode once a game, but that's okay for long-term purposes. It could be mutually beneficial. I can see it. The Cason thing is something I've struggled with, because you're right. Watching him, I'm and you'll see like whenever this article comes out later this summer, like he ends up ranking highly according to what I think the Knicks like, even though he's a freshman, which is just shows you how well he does all the other things that Knicks prospects tend to do. And you look at Quickly and you look at Deuce, and it's like, yeah, this motherfucker's like the next Avatar in the cycle, except arguably better because he's doing all of this at a younger age. Quickly's NBA development is just like in its own category of outlier. He was just like, I'll simply get better at everything at a ridiculous rate. But like, just like, can you have like at some point you can't really pass on that if you buy the talent like the Knicks often buy those kind of two-way talents. So I could totally see that. The last two guys I want to quickly ask you about that are names that are kind of bandied about because so many Knicks fans are focused on getting somebody taller than 6'5", someone 6'6" or taller, just because, you know, we have Grimes, who's amazing, and Quickly, who's amazing, and Brunson, who's amazing, and those three are going to get a lot of minutes. Is two of the tall, well, let's say three guys. Jet Howard, the shooting guard / small forward from Michigan. Grady Dick, who you mentioned, the shooting guard small forward from Kansas. And Max Lewis, who is the whatever position wing guy from Pepperdine. Those are three guys who, in terms of how tall and long they are like, yes, they check that box, but everything else, I feel like there's good pro arguments and also good con arguments for taking them. And I think a lot of Knicks fans often in this cycle in particular are very caught up too much on height just because of the way the Knicks roster looks right now in 2023, which is always kind of a dicey approach when you draft somebody who you hope to be here for like 5 years or longer.
Yeah, so I definitely would not be in on taking like Max Lewis this high. I just don't think he's really all that good. Like I think he's like a fine, like I have him in my second round. He's a fine prospect, but I don't think the handle's great. I don't think the athleticism is great, and the shot is just really slow. Like it's like if someone like threw like a time bomb on Brandon Miller and made him go in slow motion when he shot. Like that's what his jumper looks like to me.
That's why he's really good off the catch, but not good off the dribble.
and also like can't shoot off movement at all, right? So
right.
I mean I think Grady Dick is really good. I think he needs to go to a team that is going to try and maximize him offensively, but he is legitimately great at like he's a legit movement shooter who just will not miss a wide open shot. Like he can take 1, 2, 3 dribble pull-ups comfortably. He is a, you know, he just can't dribble. Like that's his thing. Like he can't dribble at all. But I think the defense is good too. Like I think it's not great, and he can definitely get abused on the perimeter sometimes. But the help instincts are good. He makes good rotations. The closeouts are better than almost anyone his age. For whatever
he's
that's
pretty
worth.
Tall. Like he has a margin there just because
he might
long.
be 6'9". Like he's tall and long and lanky, and he can really cut too. Not a bad athlete. Like I like Grady Dick. I have him in my lottery comfortably. There's definitely a lot to like there. Jet is a bit more. I really like Jet on the court. I've heard some questions off the court, like, so I don't know exactly how that's going to shake out for him, especially for the Knicks. But I think he can really shoot off movement. I think he's a better self creator than some of these other guys we've talked about. Like
his handle's legit.
He can create a lot of space. He's just not super athletic. I feel like I've talked about that with a lot of guys. He does not explode out of moves at all. Like he is very much like space creation rather than downhill driving. Right. But I think his self-organization is potentially really special. Like his ability to maneuver tight spaces and get up into like floaters and stuff off of like weird angles. And he like in his jumpers.
The Knicks love themselves some floaters, man. Everybody on the Knicks takes floaters.
Well, Emmanuel Quickly had an all-time floater in college. That was the one thing where I'm like, I didn't love him as a prospect. But I'm like, that floater is crazy. Like, but with Howard specifically, like you see it all the time on the shot. Like he's just like he's like falling over, and he's like, I could still get this off, or whatever. Like I just think there's maybe something like untapped there with someone who's just that good at orienting themselves consistently towards the basket and in like weird situations. I just buy like self-organization as a skill that scales up. Which is like part of my issue with someone like a Brandon Miller, who I'm lower on, is like I think the self-organization is really bad with Miller. I think he's pretty rough at like getting in, handling tight spaces and dealing with different inputs, to where Howard's just like he always looks comfortable, almost to a negative extent where he's too comfortable, but he's just like he's super smooth, creates like a ton of space for him. Yeah, he's a weird player to get a handle on, and a lot of people who I really like and trust are like way out on him because he's too aloof, he just kind of plays in an annoying style that a lot of evaluators don't like. But for me, I'm like, I'm gonna buy that there's maybe some creation upside there. The jumper I think could be potentially elite, and the self-organization just gives me some belief that maybe there's some untapped stuff here that we haven't seen yet. So I Dick is definitely the guy of that group I'm highest on. Lewis is the guy I'm completely out on, and then Howard's like if he's there and you think you can reel him in a little bit, I think there's some value there.
Dick is the one who's interesting to me because I seen him mocked at the end of the top 10 sometimes, like 7, 8, 9, and just looking back on the last 5 drafts, no player like him has been taken in the top 10. So there's a real chance if the Knicks keep their pick at 11, 12, 13, that they can take him and he can fill that Obi role, right? Like, which is weird because we think of Obi as like a power forward, but his role is not really a power forward role. His role is mostly revolving around skills, floor spacing, and you could definitely count on Grady to do that. So, and then separate from his skills, just like hearing Grady Dick talk and just looking at his Instagram account, him in New York City would be the greatest fucking thing of all time, just because he would just be like off the chain. He's just like a wild dude in like a wholesome kind of off the chain way. And I just think it would be very endearing and hilarious to New Yorkers to have fucking Kansas white boy Grady Dick just like trying to take swaggy photos out in these streets or whatever, and all that type of shit. So I could get behind that 100%. Bryce, thank you again for joining. This was super insightful. I'm already pondering like what do I got to rearrange on my board now that I've talked to Bryce. That happens every pod, but especially when I have you out here. So thanks for giving me more work that I will enjoy. You want to remind people where they can find you, and if you want to plug anything that you got going on that you think Insane Knicks Twitter should know about, feel free to plug that.
Yeah, I just want to say, I'm always happy to come on. I love y'all, and this has been a fun experience. I'll never forget, like my first big interaction with Knicks Twitter was when I called y'all I think I had you guys losing in 5 to the Hawks that first year, you guys, and like Knicks Twitter was like, "There's no way, you're way underrating Julius Randle," and like my mentions were insane for like 4 days because I put out playoff predictions, and we all know how that went.
Well, that begs the important follow-up question before you give your plugs. What is your take on the Knicks Cavs series?
I'm not going to bet against Evan Mobley in a playoff series, man. I'm sorry. Like that Cavs team, I think, is really good, and I hate to say this because I really do like I love you, Prez, and Stacey Patton's my guy, Chris Persianen, all y'all, like I'm big fans, but like I just don't think this Knicks team is like all that real in a lot of ways. Like I think you're very reliant on like Julius Randle, who's very consistent, being consistent for long stretches, and then I think in a playoff setting, like you guys are gonna have real trouble with like that guard duo, and everything you guys want to do getting downhill is just going to be negated by the fact that 2 of the best rim protectors in the NBA play on one team, and you got to deal with both of them at the same time. So I'm fairly comfortable with the Cavs in that one, but there will be a part of me that I just want to see Quickly go off just in one game. Like just give me a Quickly 40 piece in the playoffs and I'll be happy.
He's gonna get at least one like game that is the Quickly game. Like it's just inevitable. We might. I don't know what the fuck will happen. Like like you said, the Cavs are really fucking good. In some ways, the Knicks are just playing with house money, so I'm like okay with that. But if we could get a quickly playoff game, and we end up taking the L in the series, like I could live with that. That'd be something. That'd be special.
That's the most important part, is get the quickly playoff game. Absolutely. But yeah, you guys, all my stuff is easiest to find just on my Twitter, BryceCentric14. I'll don't need to spell it out, President at the beginning. But yeah, I do a lot of writing. If you're interested in like schematic stuff, like what college teams are running, stuff like that. Like that's what my writing is mostly about. And then my podcast, Upside Swings, that's where most of my draft work is. So yeah, follow that stuff there. And Prez, again, I can't thank you enough for having me on, man.
All right, you heard the man. Give him a follow. Put some respect on the Pacific Northwest when you're looking at these draft prospects. And aside from that, you can expect, listeners, some draft content. We're gonna probably turn up the frequency on that as we enter the Final Four and draft season really ramps up in earnest. We got a lot of good stuff lined up, so stay tuned for that, and we will catch y'all next time.